Appamada's programs and facilities are supported through your generosity. Your support really does make a huge difference. You'll find a link for contributions on the website at appamada.org/contribute. Thank you so much.
Quotes. I want to review a couple of quotes from Claire Graves, so you can get a little sense of his voice and how how he was thinking. He says, "I'm not saying in this conception of adult behavior that one style of being, one form of human existence, is inevitably and in all circumstances superior to or better than another form of human existence, another style of being, another stage," right? What I am saying is that when one form of being is more congruent with the realities of existence, then it is the better form of living for those realities. And what I am saying is that when one form of existence ceases to be functional for the realities of existence, then some other form, either higher or lower in the hierarchy, is the better form of living. I do suggest, however, and this I deeply believe is so, that for the overall welfare of total man's existence in this world, over the long run of time, higher levels are better than lower levels, and that the prime good of any society's governing figures should be to promote human movement up the levels of existence. So, and then he said, future planning must be pluralistic for a long time to come, possibly forever. This is so because at no time in the foreseeable or intermediate future can one conceive of all people at one level, and because it is very difficult to conceive that a process which is ever evolving will ever get all people to the same position on the existential staircase. Above all else, future planning must take into account that there is not a consciousness revolution taking place in the world. Instead, there are 5 fully developed revolutions in full process and 2 others operating to a lesser degree. What can be more significant to man than to see and accept that the values of individualistic man, orange level, of 50 years ago, those values which made modern society what it is today, are no longer the values by which man should live today? And what can give more purpose to existence than the never-ending quest for that new set of values which will be consonant with each new set of existential conditions? What can make life more zestful than to ever have to reach for values and new purposes, to always have our reach in life exceed our grasp? So this is a very aspirational model, that's what he's saying. Okay, for tonight, you will need a couple of pieces of paper and something to write. So let's get that established first. And if you have it handy, your change process handout. Here's your assignment. On a blank piece of paper, make a rough copy of this change state diagram. You don't have to fill in all the words and details and everything, but you can see that there's a plateau, and then there's a dip, and then there's a spike up above the previous plateau. And then you can label the alpha, beta, gamma, delta, and next alpha positions. And then, so I'm just going to tell you, you're going to make a little map of this, right? And then you're going to decide for yourself what point of the change process you're in right now, right? And you're just going to, and it might be that you feel a little bit of this and a little bit of that. That's what this shows, right? So you might just stop and consider, oh yeah, well, I'm not totally established in the new alpha yet, but I am really definitely, the delta is moving, so you can kind of gauge that. You're going to do that and do the flex, first order change, second order change, and prefers order, prefers chaos pieces also. Now those are on a scale from 0 to 30 being the most, 0 being the least of that quality. So you're going to kind of, you're going to self-identify. What is that? What are those qualities for yourself? You prefer first order change, remember, slow, steady transformations, or you prefer revolutionary change, something that's more sudden, right? Might be like sudden and gradual enlightenment. Or prefers order or thrives on chaos. And then the flexibility scale. So you're going to just sort of self-assess on that. And then, so you're going to have plenty of time for that. You're going to write a little bit, just talk a little bit about where you are in this change process in a narrative way. You know, like this is like a little metric, a little self-assessment. But then what is this, how does this relate to you, right? So what are you experiencing as a result of being, you know, in the gamma trough or in the delta insight and exuberance, right? So, so write a little bit of narrative about that. And we're going to have about, what do you think, maybe 20 minutes, half an hour? Half an hour? Okay. All right, it's 7:10 now, so we'll you know, reconvene at 7:40. I'm going to put you into groups of 4 at that point. We have some groups of 4. Maybe we need to be groups of 3, let's see.
I don't understand what we're rating 0 to 30.
Okay, so,
Some of this is too small for me.
yeah, so the bottom one in the bottom left-hand corner, you can write right on it, you know, that's flexibility. So are you very flexible? You know, people change plans, you're fine with that, you know. Are you have a hard time being flexible? You know, so you're going to be on that scale from 0 to 30 somewhere. The box on the right that's at the top is first order change or second order change. So are you more a person who likes gradual change, or are you more a person who likes, you know, rapid changes? Revolutionary kinds of changes.
Which is which? I'm sorry, the first order is
slow. First order is slow and gradual, and the second order is quick and sudden. So you prefer a revolution, or you prefer things to be gradually changed over time. Okay. And then the one on the bottom right is prefers order or thrives on chaos. So it's a separate scale for each of those, because it's not order at one end and chaos at the other. It's like you might have quite a mix, right? So your order and chaos preferences.
And is this subject neutral? We can just pick anything we want to talk about, to
Yeah.
situate this in?
It's whatever's present for you right now. So if you're in the middle of a job change, it'll be about that. If you're in the middle of, you know, moving to a new house, it'll be about that. If you're just in an existential crisis, it'll be about that. So, you know, if you have, yeah, you know, if you have a bunch of dread about the forthcoming events, it'll be about that, you know. So you just, you're just positioning whatever it is that you want to, because that's what you'll be writing about, is that, you know. So if,
and that comes up when you start writing about what are you experiencing as a result of being in this state.
yes, yeah. So it's what, you know, what is the experience that you're having that it actually provides a context for this. So someone looks at this and they go, oh my gosh, you're in the gamma trough, what is this about? You know, like, we want to give a context. So does that make sense? Okay, we're going to mix things up so that you are going to self-organize to be in groups of 3 with 2 other people that you have not yet interacted with. Okay? So just stand up, just move around, find your people. All right, find a spot, and you're just going to, you just have 15 minutes to talk about what you have written, what your thinking is. Okay? All right, it's not complex. 15 minutes.
The rules.
No. Somebody has to keep time. Dan, we're going to run a little bit over, and then we'll have a 5-minute Kim-Hin and a little bit shorter sitting period. Okay, online folks, just so you know what's going on. I think we're gonna probably run a little over. So first of all, how was that for you?
That's good, that's interesting.
It was nice to be able to plug in your own life into it, and you really get a much better sense about it.
Uh-huh.
And then it's also revelatory as far as what one is doing, and thinking about it, and how that is. So, yeah, I thought that was useful. Although I wasn't thinking in terms of different levels.
Right,
It's
right.
just-
This is just about the change process itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it might apply even if you were not changing levels, but something was changing even within a level in your life. Yeah. Anyone online have any reports?
I have a question, Peg. So, my partner and I approached it really differently. She located herself in the stages, and I went just described where I was, like, kind of at each stage. So, I'm sure there's not a right or a wrong way, but yeah. So that was just interesting that we
Yeah.
approached it differently.
Yeah, yeah. And there's not, you're right, there isn't really a right way or a wrong way, but it's an indicator. It's just an indicator, and it's, for me, it's like it's generative. You know, you can think about, well, what do I need at this stage? You know, so those were the questions I came up, like, what kind of support would be most beneficial for you at this point, in whatever point you're in? Like, what kind of support would be most useful? Did you have a thought about that? Anybody?
No. Never. That's a great question.
And that tells you something, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Sometimes we're not even aware that there's a possibility of support, right? It just never occurs to us. It's not like, you know, we discount it. It's like it never occurs to us, oh, someone could help me. You know, or it'd be good for me to talk to somebody about this, or, you know, anything like that.
Oh, I have my therapist's number right at hand.
Speed dial. Yeah. Yeah, so it's helpful to think that way.
Oh, I was gonna say that it was actually helpful for me having this little, diagram, and thinking about, being at a certain stage with a certain issue, but also realizing that sometimes I was in gamma, or there was a part of me that was in gamma, and not thinking of that as sort of like backsliding or failing or something, you know, but it was just like, there's a part of me that's at that stage, or
Yeah.
there's, you know, a part of this issue that is still at that stage, and that seemed like integrated in some way.
Yeah.
Everything has to be healed.
Yeah, there's not a sense of there's a better place to be or a worse place to be in this process, but just recognizing, oh, this is where this is. Yeah, you know, and for me, it's hopeful. It's like, oh, I see, this feels really awful, but I see that I'm going to get an insight at some point about, you know, and that's going to drive me to a new chapter, really, basically. So that's the hopeful thing about it.
On these, especially on the boxes, I kept finding that I would put a number down for me, and then as I started to write about it, I changed the number.
Oh,
I started to learn more about, you know, where I landed on those 3 boxes after the first, you know.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was different. It
yeah.
was really helpful to flesh it out and start
Yeah.
thinking of examples.
Yeah, that's really a good point. You know, when they do this assessment, they give you, you know, a list of questions, and then out of those questions, they generate the data for the report that they give you, which has all these little arrows on it, you know. So it shows you what the assessment itself is telling you. When you do a self-assessment, you're right, it's likely to change as you work with it or as you think about it and write about it. Yeah.
I had the same experience. As I wrote, my feeling of being in conflict with another person softened.
Uh-huh.
And I realized that we were closer together.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is really interesting.
I was just on a conflict with a friend, and I've been in the gamma stage for a long time about it. And I just like having it kind of spelled out for me. I have had a couple of insights, big things about the problem, and it's really made me feel freer. And so I really like that connection of support insights at the gamma stage.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think also helping people recognize, that they're in a stage, that they're not in a permanent place, is helpful. Yeah. Yeah, so did any of you folks online have a sense of what might support you at the particular place that in this change process that you saw, that you identified yourself? So the second part of that question is, who or what would you trust to provide support in that stage of the change process that you're in? There we go.
It's a 3-step thing on here. I find it really excellent as a way of embracing our Dharma gate. Is that, yes, if we recognize it, but at any point that we bottom out on any problem, that in fact there's a Dharma gate.
That's right.
And certainly for the one that was a big one for me recently, I hit bottom out, and I across 1 week had practice discussion with 5 different people, because I just knew that this isn't something that's impossible, but it is something that is intensely important for me to feel settled in rather than otherwise. And each of those people contributed to my moving through it in a way that was very satisfying. And I think that the thing where we take it from a recent alpha place, and then through all of that, right, it makes it really clear. And so when we do hit any of that level of intensity of discomfort and so on, I'm so grateful to be in a place where there are people that can listen, so that I can even know exactly what I'm saying or what I'm, and that I feel supported in so very much. So that's where community comes in.
I think you're right. Yeah. I don't want to take too much more of our time, but I did have one question, which is connected to our theme, of course, which is, where would you put the Sangha on this change process? Where would you place the Sangha in the change process? So what do you think? If you were going to place the Sangha somewhere on this change process, since everything is always changing?
I'm real aware of our Sangha going through some of these things, and I would say lately we, for a little while there we were in Gamma, but I see us switching into Delta. From the things I hear people say and the way I feel, So yeah, I feel like we're moving into Delta.
And so the support at Delta is?
The support at Delta, well, we certainly have to support each other. I don't know. That's all that comes to me.
But here it says celebrate the Delta stage and
Oh, celebrate.
modulate any grandiosity that might like the over.
Oh, yeah, I don't think we're that far into Delta yet. I think we've just
Have a lot of over exuberance. Yeah, but I think really there is grounds for congratulations of people getting through a very difficult transition and holding together and sticking together and staying committed to the community. And I think that's worth celebrating because, we're talking about coming through huge traumatic changes for a group. And of course it's not easy, and of course it's messy and hard, but I do see that people have come through the pandemic, manage the transition of the teachers getting old and moving, things like that. And so there's a sense that I think there is a lot to celebrate because look around, people are still committed, they're still coming, they're still caring, they're still making financial contributions and support. So that's a big gain with all we faced, right? Yeah. Yeah, so I often, so at this point, I would be thinking about what kind of support might be most beneficial and sort of like providing more energy and fuel for this Delta surge that's sort of seems to be starting, and who or what do we think might provide that kind of support? It's us, basically. Yeah, so there's both an individual way to take this model, this change process model, and also an organizational or community way to look at it and say, okay, the whole organization is different from what the individuals have gone through, right? It's a different order of the change process because it's not just an individual, it's a group, and it has its own distinct identity, its own distinct energies, and its own distinct moods that are not just, a function of the addition of all these people. Yeah, so just things to think about, right? Yeah, so that's probably plenty for one night, right?
Yeah.
But I just wanted you to experience the practical application and thinking about it in terms of your own life. What changes you're going through right now yourself, and how they might map onto this model in a way that hopefully is heartening and inspiring. It's like, oh yeah, And so often in the first alpha stage, you'll have a weird background looming sense of dread. Like things can't go on like this forever. I know that, but nothing is disturbing things right now. But there's a kind of a background sense, and that's when the anomalies start to show up, and the things that are little disturbances in our placid, status quo. Yeah.
It seems that naming the issue really helps, and that's what happened for me. That from going from helpless to this is just what needs to be dealt with.
Yeah, I think that's one of the heartening things about this to me is, oh yeah, I see. Okay, it's not that I have fallen into a chasm I'm never going to get out of, in this stage. And over the years, I've developed a lot of trust in that, because it looks pretty bleak when you're in that stage, and it really is the headbanging stage. You really can't figure out what to do about it. But over the years, I've seen what happens.
I was just kind of reflecting on what you were saying about the community and then the personal. And I don't know, I had this sense in the personal sphere that change or difficulty, despite being difficult or being painful, I know it's a good thing that there's change happening, despite all that. But in the terms of community, I don't have that kind of, personally, I don't have that kind of sense of, oh, well, we have all these tools and, I know what to do next. I don't feel that. I don't, this isn't, because I've never worked on the level of community.
That's right,
So
that's
I
right.
have no sense
Yeah,
about that.
that's right.
And no comfort zone.
Yeah, it's sort of the systems view, you know, and the systems view is very, very different than the personal view. That's actually the chapter I'm writing right now includes that. You know, sort of an explanation of taking the systems view, and you're looking at the systems level, you're going to be looking at the health and well-being of the overall system. That means that when you see something that's unwholesome happening, you have to determine, is this something that needs to be surgically removed, or does it need to be medicated, or does it, you know, what remedy is there for that? You need to also be thinking of the health and well-being of the whole may make some people, individuals in it, quite unhappy, right? Because you have to make some decisions for the well-being of the whole group or the whole community. And that's a different feeling, because personally, we don't want to make anybody unhappy, right? And we don't want to be unkind, and people will tell us we're being unkind because we're doing X, right? Or because we've made this change or something like that. And I think that's the benefit of being able to take the systems view, because you can see, yeah, this is going to make some people unhappy, and I'm going to have to accept that, you know, which is a step out of the green level thinking. You know. Yeah, great. Yeah, no, it's really important. It's important to know, you know, that that is a different lens, a kind of a different lens to view the whole situation. And you come to the point where you realize, this is not something I want, but I can see that it's better for everybody, you know. Yeah. Okay,
Looks like there's a hand up.
there's a hand.
Peg, do you think we'll have time in the rest of the retreat to spend a little more time on this last question of what the community, what supports the community, our community might need to move more fully into that Delta space?
Yes, we'll have a little bit more time, but it's really something for an all Sangha town hall meeting, or an appreciative inquiry process might be one way to do that. But I'm raising the question now because we're talking about belonging, and we're talking about this this application of our vow in this collective way, you know, not just in our individual way. So yeah, so I wish we could, you know, wish we could have a semester of this, but it's so rich. There's so much we can talk about in terms of community and in terms of the larger systems.
Well, maybe that's something that we can do following the intensive.
Great. I think that'd be terrific. Yeah. That'd be terrific. Yeah. All right. We'll have a brief kinhin and a brief zazen period.
Prepare for kinhin.